You know, sports is very interesting sometimes. You kind of sit there, there's some things that you look at and some things you don't look at. But the things you don't see is what makes me upset. Now, the Minnesota Vikings threw Sage Rosenfels under the bus. They said, hey man, come be our starter. Then who they do? They got an old man with a walker named Brett Favre. Of course, albeit he has beat a couple teams, pretty badly at the last second, a.k.a. the 49ers and the Baltimore Ravens. But literally, Sage Rosenfels is a good quarterback. They don't need a guy named Brett Favre. It doesn't make them a Super Bowl contender. It doesn't mean anything to me. I think because once he's going to do the same thing he did last year with the Jets. He's going to be great now, struggle down the stretch, and Minnesota may even miss the playoffs by a game. But I would say that if they were in a different division. But they're not. They're in the NFC North, which I think I can win myself. So, really, if you're a Brett Favre supporter, get off the bandwagon. Because sooner or later, he's going to have to leave. He's going to have to retire. And hopefully this year, somebody knocks him out playing clean enough that he can't come back next year. All right, we're going straight into MLB talk right now. We got here, Douglas right here. I mean, his Yankees are still in. Of course, you haven't seen by the shirt here. His Yankees are still in, and not just in, but they're up 2-0. What do you think about the Yankees so far?
Well, I gotta admit that I was quite impressed with their Game 2 victory. My question is, you're in the bottom of the ninth. Yankees need a run to score. You got A-Rod up. Bases are open. Why don't you just walk A-Rod and face the next guy? And you bring in your closer, which is probably the right move to do. But you throw him 3 straight fastballs. A-Rod's going to hit any fastball and he hits it out, ties it up. Of course, the Angels are discouraged here. They make a couple bad plays down the stretch and the Yankees win. So I got to admit, the Yankees have impressed me quite a bit, but there's still a couple steps to take in order to reach their ultimate goal, and that's, of course, winning the World Series. As far as the NL goes, I think it's been sort of one-sided in the LCS at this point with the way Cliff Lee was pitching, man. He was unbelievable. 8 innings. I think he had 11 Ks, only 3 hits. And he was
dominant. He was very dominant. Going back to your first question about the Yankees, why didn't the Angels, walk A-Rod instead of pitch to him? One thing about that is you kind of remember, in the past when A-Rod struggles. You kind of figure, he gets lucky every once and again. Why not take that chance? There were a couple years ago where he struck out, with bases loaded. So you take that chance on it. Of course, it comes back to bite you in the butt, and that is, the kind of the chances that you take. And if I was Mike Scioscia, I'd do the same thing. I'd pitch to him, and if he hits it at the ballpark, hey, good job to A-Rod. If he doesn't, you look like a genius.
But at the same time, he has been playing at a far higher level up until this point.
Yeah, it's true. But
compared to previous postseasons.
But when will the question is when will it falter? I mean, does it falter in Game 2? Does it falter in Game 7? Does it falter if they make it to the World Series? Does it falter then? And it becomes a manager's decision: do you pitch or do you walk them? And really, if my main concern with the Yankees is not A-Rod, it's Mark Teixeira. So if I walk Mark Teixeira, I can't turn around and walk A-Rod too. That's just unheard of. Because anybody in that lineup can beat you.
That's true. It is an awfully tough lineup, and they had to make a decision. And they felt pretty confident with their closer going in that he could be able to beat him, but he was just too predictable at that point. He had thrown 2 straight fastballs, and they weren't like 95. They were like 89, 90. And we know A-Rod can hit that, and he got it up, and A-Rod got enough of it and hit it out.
One thing about Brian Fuentes, this is the reason why he didn't work in Colorado. He became too predictable. They knew when he was going to throw his fastball. They knew when he was going to throw his strikeout pitch. He sometimes throws a strikeout pitch on strike 2 just to get you looking. But, I mean, it's just this time, A-Rod, very great hitter against a really, a decent closer. And this just so happened that, the hitter won this chance. But you never know what can happen in Game 3 today, or even in Game 4 or 5, 6, or 7 if it goes that far. You just never know, and sometimes you just got to take that chance. I think Mike Scioscia will be very smart today if that situation came up again.
And you always have to believe in the decision that you're making as far as whether you should walk the guy or pitch to the guy. And unfortunately, that decision did backfire on Max Scherzer, but maybe next time it won't. But a thing that I'm quite upset with, I guess you could say, if I could be upset with anything as far as baseball playoffs, is some shoddy fielding going on, at least in the AL. And that was the whole reason why the Yankees won a game, too, yeah.
It's the same thing in the National League. Chase Utley had 2 errors in games 1 and 2 in the same situation. Trying to throw out the double play. The first time I forgot who was. I think he was trying to get Raphael for a call, but the second time he tried to get a slow running Russell Martin. Russell Martin was probably only halfway up the baseline when he fielded the throw at second. They were trying to throw that around the horn double play from third to second to first, and the third baseman gave it Chase Utley let him good enough time, or he didn't have to rush to throw. Of course, Russell Martin, you need a sundial to get him up to first base. But he had a lot of chance to it, and he that's what gave up the game for the Phillies. They could be up 3-0 right now.
Exactly, and in Game 1 of the ALCS, the Angels had 2 errors, and they were very costly. They gave up 2 runs on those 2 errors, and it would have been a much closer game, and ended up being a 4-1 win for the Yankees. In the second game, those 5 errors total, 3 on the Yankees and 2 on the Angels. Right. And that's just unacceptable as a defense, especially
at this point in the season. At this point in the season, you want to eliminate all errors, and that's just one thing that you can't have is costly errors at that, especially errors on the 9th inning or the 8th inning. 7th inning, is supposed to be your cleanest baseball ever. That's when you make your defensive switches and everything. But some people, you just don't make that defensive switch for in case you got to go into extras.
But one thing I do like as far as baseball players is going, when the schedule had come out, they thought that maybe the Yankees and Angels would have trouble getting in both games.
Yeah.
And it started to downpour in Game 2, and they had just came out with that new rule where every game's going to be played to 9 innings, regardless of how long they have to stop it for. Yeah. And they did. And they played 13 innings well into the night. And I'm just glad we get to see full games.
One thing I do like about the baseball playoffs is they have decided that, hey, you know what, we're going to go ahead and play. No matter how bad the weather is, we're going to pull you off. And if we got to play 2 innings, if we got to play the 8th and 9th inning at 2 o'clock in the morning, they're going to do it. And the funny thing is about fans is at this point in the year, fans will stay out for that. Fans will, of course, if you're at Yankee Stadium, if you leave, you can't come back in. That's the sucky part. But most people, most players, they kind of understand the economics behind it. But you kind of have to have, that fan saying, hey, you know what, we're going to be delayed for 3 hours. Come back at 2 o'clock. Let those fans leave, go get dry or something. Don't let them sit out there in Yankee Stadium while everything's getting wet. But one thing I do like about one thing I don't like about the playoffs, and you mentioned and you haven't mentioned, but everything is getting a little bit one-sided. If you think about that NLCS. Games 1, 2, 3 are all one-sided. Everything's happening to one team. Yesterday, the Phillies won 11-0. That's impossible. That is unheard of for a championship series in the playoffs. How do you get shut out and allow 11 runs? Everybody said, "Well, it's Cliff Lee." Well, Cliff Lee doesn't hit very well, so it's not his fault. You can't get 11 runs just by pitching.
Yeah. It was Hiroki Kuroda's first start in quite a while, and he did not look the part
at all. I know he had a neck injury that led up to that, and that kind of sucks too. But at that point in time, a smart manager like Joe Torre, you have to say, I can't allow Kuroda to go in there and start. Not against the guys like this, but tonight when tonight they got Randy Wolf going. That's going to be that should be a bleeding. He should stop the bleeding. He's a very good pitcher. He did that with the Astros last year. Can also do it again this year. So you just never know what they can do, and he's great. 194 against left-handed batters this season. So that's a very good stat. And if I was people like Chase Utley and Jason Worth and Ryan Howard, I'm scared. And Jimmy Rollins too. I'd be very scared.
And that's part of the reason why he's pitched so well against the Phillies this year. So.
Yeah, and pretty much in Game 5, they're going to go back to Clayton Kershaw. And that's going to be Clayton Kershaw basically shut him down in Game 1, except for those couple runs that he allowed. But after that, that's about it.
Well, I think Clayton Kershaw is a terrific young pitcher, but he's got some room for improvement. He walks way too many people.
Yeah, well, Clayton Kershaw, only 22 years old. Mm-hmm. He got thrown into the mix last year when they were on that up and up climb after they got Manning. And so he had to pitch. He had to come out there and he had to pitch, and they kind of threw him into the the NLCS last year.